we have this amazing asset in Bitcoin, and it has all these properties that are different to all other assets in the world. And if we want to use it, then we kind of have to compromise on some of its qualities in order to get value from it, at least in a centralized context.
And we're back with our live coverage of Korea Blockchain Week 2025. I'm Graham Stone, hosting with Frederick Munoa. And now we are very excited to have Callan Sarre, the co-founder and CPO of Threshold Labs. Threshold Labs is co-sponsoring our live stream today, and we've got some exciting giveaways. So make sure to repost the live stream post, get in there with your comments. We've got $2,000 of tBTC up for grabs, $1,000 to the winner, and 2 runner-ups for the best questions or comments in the live stream. So don't miss it. All right, Callan, thank you for doing this. Could you tell us a little bit about your background, what path you took to get to what you're doing today?
Sure, absolutely. And yeah, thanks for having me. So yeah, I've been in crypto since 2017. I guess I got first inspired by the idea of Bitcoin as a concept, like solving decentralized consensus in the way that it did, seeing this as a fundamentally new mechanism in terms of kind of global finance. And then paired with Ethereum, I think it really expanded my horizons in terms of what is possible with decentralized infrastructure in this emergent ecosystem of DeFi and these new products that we can build that simply weren't possible in the context of human-based trust. So now we have these digital systems that are providing trust as a result. And I found that very inspiring at the time. And I dropped out of university and I started my own kind of consulting company. And I ran that for a number of years and saw the rise of DeFi and these new applications, and new chains and ICOs and all of this kind of stuff emerge. And through that was kind of formalization of DeFi to some extent to where we are now, these billions of dollars of on-chain liquidity in this growing ecosystem. And throughout that journey, I came in touch with the pre-Threshold projects that merged together to become Threshold. I was involved in those early communities. And then when Threshold came to be and tBTC V2 went live, I was involved as a kind of growth lead for tBTC V2. We bootstrapped it from zero to the TVL it has today. And we started getting very heavily involved in the Bitcoin DeFi space. And then in February of this year, having been working at Threshold DAO and consulting with Threshold DAO for a number of years, seeing the need for a structured labs entity to take over the product development and product roadmap for tBTC and do all of the growth functions and things that it's kind of harder to execute as a DAO. So that's a bit of how I started in crypto and came to the point where I'm running Threshold Labs, and super excited to be doing so.
Okay, so fellow class of 2017. I believe you as well, Frederick, a little bit earlier perhaps.
2016, 2017, same thing.
Yeah,
tomato, tomato.
A lot of people got into crypto around that time. Not the first wave of OGs, but
Early enough.
Yeah. So
scenes.
For those new to Threshold, Callan, what problem is Threshold solving, and why does it matter for Bitcoin and crypto broadly?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question because we have this amazing asset in Bitcoin, and it has all these properties that are different to all other assets in the world. And if we want to use it, then we kind of have to compromise on some of its qualities in order to get value from it, at least in a centralized context. So if I have my Bitcoin and I want to borrow against it, or I want to use it as collateral in some situation, then I have to exchange my keys and the custody arrangement with a centralized entity, and then I have to compromise on the kind of fundamental value proposition of Bitcoin to some extent. And there's obviously amazing products out there and custodians, and there's a lot of regulation and security in all of that. So I don't knock those products in themselves, but they still take some kind of compromise. And then we also have DeFi, this amazing emergent ecosystem where trust is really reduced to the minimum requirements. There's new execution environments where you can have smart contract and business logic codified into these contracts and have it all public and open source. And I think that's just a better way of doing business generally, having things in an open and transparent environment, and then being able to use the world's best asset in Bitcoin in that environment as well. And that's really where Threshold comes in. So we basically enable people to take Bitcoin from Bitcoin native and then to deploy that onto any of the endpoints in DeFi, whether that's a liquidity pool or a structured vault of some kind, a staking product, whatever it is. And we're solving that in a way that is really trust minimized and transparent. And in terms of how Threshold does that, we do it with a fully kind of auditable and on-chain system. So I think in terms of the Bitcoin wrappers that are out there, and I guess effectively at the end of the day, that's what tBTC is in crypto terms, is a Bitcoin wrapper. We secure the Bitcoin on the Bitcoin chain using a decentralized custody system, and then we mint tBTC onto Ethereum or whichever destination chain you're desiring, and then you can deploy that into crypto.
So speaking of Bitcoin wrappers, a lot of people are probably familiar with WBTC. Maybe it's the first Bitcoin wrapper. What is different about tBTC, threshold Bitcoin? How is that different from WBTC or other Bitcoin wrappers?
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally at the moment, the custody is very different. So you have BitGo, you have BitGlobal and Justin Sun Conglomerate securing the Bitcoin for WBTC. And that's kind of a centralized custody system. It's opaque. You don't really know what's going on. It seems to have been very trustworthy because it's lasted this long, but things have changed recently.
Basically a multi-sig.
Yeah, it seems to be like a 2 of 3 multi-sig at the moment with some kind of cold wallet set up as well. BitGo has their own custody business, and I'm sure they do that very effectively. But then what we have is a decentralized and permissionless custody system. So rather than needing to go through a centralized entity such as BitGo and KYC and sign up for an account and provide your details, you can simply bring your Bitcoin wallets or your Ethereum account, or whichever destination account you wish, and then you can mint Bitcoin directly from Bitcoin chain to your wallet. So rather than having to go through this CeFi kind of process, you can just bring the full DeFi experience and mint your assets directly from your wallet. So what that does is reduces the barriers to entry quite significantly. And as a result, we are one of the highest kind of like volume wrappers, in the sense that we do the highest mint and redemption flow proportional to our TVL. And I think that's really where we distinguish ourselves in terms of how we're used, is that people come and go more freely.
People can mint and redeem easily, and they do. So there's a higher velocity than other wrapped versions of Bitcoin.
Yes, exactly.
Which I guess it's a proof that it's easy to do.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, it's a much lower friction barrier to entry, where you can just bring your wallet and sign up and go permissionlessly.
Okay, so can we talk a little bit, maybe get into the weeds a little bit here about threshold cryptography, the threshold namesake? Like, what is that? What's the magic there? Like, without getting too technical, if it's possible to even keep that kind of question, answer that kind of question high level.
For sure, yeah. And at the end of the day, you have to work with the primitives that Bitcoin gives you on chain. And at the moment, Bitcoin supports multi-sig wallets, and so it's the way to secure Bitcoin on the Bitcoin chain is via a multi-sig wallet still. But it comes down to like how those seats on the wallet are selected and how many seats there are. So you could have like a 2 of 3 multi-sig, and the selection process is you buy into BitGlobal or something like this. But in order to be a seat on the threshold multi-sig, you have T tokens, and you're part of the beta staker program. And then the seat selection in that multi-sig is based on a probabilistic function based on the number of T tokens that you hold. So it's more of like a random selection function, which makes that multi-sig much harder to game. And I think that's part of like where it distinguishes itself. And also at the moment, it's a 51 of 100 multi-sig rather than a lower seat selection. And that gets randomly selected between the nodes in our network. So
okay, so perhaps butchering this, but a more decentralized version of a multi-sig, that like a safer, bigger multi-sig with some randomization that makes it so it can't just be controlled by a small group of people.
Exactly, yeah. And there's that probabilistic function that makes it harder to game because it's randomized. And there's also this wallet rotating mechanism that's built into the system such that you'll always kind of have forward security. So if you have a node that kind of goes offline or something like that, the wallets get rotated into the current set, which gets selected each time a new wallet is generated.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So let's zoom out to the big picture here for a minute. So Bitcoin's role in DeFi is still pretty small compared to EVM chains and stable coins. So what's your take on the obstacles holding it back? And is it just like this these like centralized wrapped versions? Is that why it hasn't really exploded? Is there something with the inherent limitations in Bitcoin? And can Threshold actually like help overcome those obstacles and make DeFi great on Bitcoin, I guess?
Right. Absolutely. I mean, I think the obstacles to Bitcoin in DeFi are similar to the obstacles to Bitcoin in the broader economy, in a sense. Like, we're seeing this broader adoption of Bitcoin as an asset. We're seeing these treasury companies come online, and they're buying up all this Bitcoin, and they're kind of like, what do we do with it? Like, this kind of narrative of Bitcoin as digital gold, which is, I think, a strong narrative, but it's still a little bit short of the full potential in Bitcoin, in a sense. So I think broadening the use cases on-chain and off-chain, and increasing the volume of the Bitcoin economy generally, like people using Bitcoin to collateralize debts or to trade it or make money on top of it. So I think those kind of fundamental integration level things are part of the blockers. And just an example of that, a lot of crypto volume at the moment is in perps trading, for example, and USD C or USDT are commonly the only collateral assets available on some of the major perps trading venues. And if they started to accept Bitcoin as a collateral to perps trading as well, then maybe there'd be some kind of additional utility and better margins in Bitcoin yield if that was to be the case.
Right, and of course, you could never do that with native Bitcoin, at least unless without major changes to the protocol itself. So, thus the wrapped Bitcoin on a smart contract-enabled platform.
Exactly. And I think
what other smart contract platforms is tBTC available on? You mentioned Ethereum.
Yeah.
I know you guys are on Sui as well. What other platforms do you guys list on?
Yeah, I mean, we've recently launched on Sui. That was a great launch. We're on Starknet as well, Mesochain as well, which is this a Bitcoin lending app chain, effectively. And then a number of the L2, so Optimism, Base, Arbitrum, Polygon, and we're also live on Solana as well.
Cool.
Yeah. But on that point of barriers to adoption, I think there is also still this prevailing mentality in Bitcoin is around like set and forget. This is my generational wealth bet, and putting it kind of in the background of my mind. And the utility of Bitcoin in day-to-day life or in day-to-day finance still hasn't been realized, partly because people are really wanting to protect their Bitcoin and protect their interest. And I completely understand that. And I also think that there is like a percentage of one's net worth or percentage of one's Bitcoin that could be put to work in a functional way to drive some kind of baseline revenue or cash flow to individuals with Bitcoin. So as Bitcoin appreciates, stacking Satoshis, earning more Bitcoin, I think that's an attractive proposition to lots of people. And that's what I would advocate for doing with a small portion of one's Bitcoin is trying to accumulate more Bitcoin, because that's how I see it for myself.
Okay. How about using your Bitcoin to get a loan? Are you seeing much adoption with tBTC, people actually doing that?
Yeah, it's actually a really significant portion of what people are using tBTC for at the moment. And you could point to Aave as an example of that. I think we have over 1,000 Bitcoin as collateral there. And generally, people are borrowing USD against that. And they do so because you can do a lot of different farming opportunities with USD at the moment. And Bitcoin being a really great way to collateralize that position. So like I was saying with these perp dexes, for example, if you have Bitcoin, you can borrow USD. And you can either trade that on a DEX, or you can use that as collateral on a perp DEX and collect a funding rate or something like this. So it's just a very kind of basic yield strategy that we're seeing out there with Bitcoin. But what I think is interesting as well is when people start to think about their real life finances and not just financial activity with that, in the sense that maybe you want to use your Bitcoin to pay down your mortgage or something like this. And instead of then managing debts within the traditional financial system, you're managing your own debt position with like a decentralized protocol like MakerDAO or Spark or something like this. And you can, shop around for your own interest rates. You can rotate in and out of those positions. There's a very low friction entry and exiting to these loans as well. And I think this is an exciting use case we're seeing, especially for tBTC in the context of Meso, where their whole thesis is around this lending market effectively. And they're doing like a curve-esque tokenomic kind of bootstrapping mechanism based on the interest paid by Bitcoin loans on their chain. So they're trying to build that as a use case in day-to-day finance. And I think they say something like, you want to be able to finance a burrito. Like, don't worry about your house. Just like start with a burrito, keep it simple and accessible to people. And really excited to see what they do there as well.
All right. Could you tell me about the adoption that tBTC has seen, and what metrics what metrics are you looking at? Is it number of coins minted? We talked about the velocity. Are there any other metrics that you're looking at? And could you just go over what kind of adoption you've seen? Also, maybe what kind of people are using it? If you have any insight in there, is it retail, institutions?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I mean, there are these classic metrics that everybody looks at. TVL obviously being this heuristic everybody's assessing these projects by. And TVL can be very fickle, I think, like based on where you are in your launch cycle, what kind of deals you have, what kind of time frame these have. So I'm really happy to say that our TVL crossed 6K Bitcoin today. And what I like most about our growth curve is that it's a very progressive and steady curve at the moment. And what that indicates to me is there is this kind of like natural flow that's taking place there. And of course, like we have plans in the works that are going to kind of, exponentiate that curve, which we're very excited about and are working on. But right now in its current V2 version, tBTC V2, it's seeing this very steady growth and adoption, and it's just continuing to rise, where we're seeing other wrappers basically all decline at the moment as these kind of deals unwind in our perception. And in terms of the user base at the moment, like there isn't necessarily a lot of retail flow in the sense that people aren't coming with their funds as much as we're aware right now, and using it for day-to-day use cases. I think really where we're trying to position and have a conversation here is how do we set up the base layer of institutional infrastructure such that we can connect the dots of this emerging Bitcoin economy in a better programmable Bitcoin business environment, such as on-chain environments, and still have the same capacity to exit to mainnet Bitcoin with strong guarantees such as Threshold provides. So I think really this institutional space is just seeing growing in the world at the moment with all of these treasury companies or the stance of sovereign states and things like this. We want to support those endeavors and also give them something to do with their Bitcoin in a really secure way that helps them to build the wealth that they're securing at the moment.
What is Threshold's business model?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, it's based on bridge revenue. So we have a zero fee to mint, 0% fee, and then a 20 basis points, so 0.2% redemption fee. So when you bring your Bitcoin in, make your money, and then go back off chain, we take a 0.2% fee on that. But really how we're thinking about things is how do we enable this economy and set up these endpoints and then have a way of kind of generating revenue from people doing useful activity in DeFi. And that can look like a number of different things like vault strategies or staking products or things like that. And building out these different utility sinks and Bitcoin sinks that people can deploy their Bitcoin to. And by setting these up and creating these kind of more structured services, then we'll be able to capture some revenue from that. So I think shifting our revenue rather from like the base technology of enabling the connectivity and then generating value from where it actually arrives at the end of the day.
Okay, so you mentioned that there's a tBTC pool on Aave.
Yeah.
So how did that happen? Is that something that you guys, is that like a partnership with Aave? Is that just the community did that? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a long process. I think we were the first Bitcoin wrapper outside of WBTC to be on Aave. So we kind of paved the way in many cases for other wrappers to be listed there. But it has a number of strict requirements, like you have to have a certain depth of liquidity on chain. You have to have a chain link oracle, which when we were bootstrapping tBTC was actually very difficult to come by. And they also have liquidity requirements. So it's basically this process of taking tBTC, this new asset that doesn't have on-chain liquidity, that doesn't have these integrations, and doing the on-the-ground kind of guerrilla marketing and guerrilla business development to get these integrations, build the liquidity on-chain via token emissions and incentive schemes, and then get to the point where we qualify as this blue chip status. And now that we have these great venues in Aave and MakerDAO and Compound, etc., then we have this like nice stable base of liquidity. So it's been a really interesting process to go from 0 to 1 of this new asset in DeFi. And I think that's an experience that, few in the world have kind of seen at the moment, and will become much more prevalent as DeFi becomes more dominant.
All right. Let's focus a little bit on governance and community. I think you mentioned that Threshold DAOs has recently restructured in some way to streamline committees and focus resources on tBTC. Is that accurate? And if so, how has that shift impacted growth and execution?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a really interesting process, and that is accurate in the sense that Threshold DAO was kind of operating tBTC, not only kind of from a growth and marketing perspective, it was also, while the DAO doesn't have any direct impact on running the protocol, it's decentralized. It still has some of the governance controls and things that it manages, and the DAO treasury. So trying to run a product roadmap and growth strategy and these things by the DAO was very challenging to do. And so, and prior to that as well, there was the founding team of tBTC, Thesis, which was supporting tBTC as a product. They started to focus on their new product called Mezzo, and then they started to kind of focus more on that and withdraw some of the support they had for tBTC, which left the DAO kind of managing things by itself. And being in DAOs and seeing just decentralized governance generally, it's quite slow. It takes a lot of alignment to get anything done, and it's not exactly the best way to kind of own and operate a product. So seeing the opportunity for a more streamlined entity, this is where the founding of Threshold Labs came through, and there are a number of proposals on the forum, so you can actually go on the forum and see this whole process kind of play out in history. And this proposal said we should collapse the existing management structure that the DAO has in terms of growth and marketing and these things, and put it inside a centralized execution entity, and also take on the development and product ownership of tBTC. So this was all passed by governance. The DAO is still functioning as it does, but it basically took away some of the roles and positions that the DAO was operating in its management context. And it still exists to manage there's the Threshold Committee now, which is the kind of, you could think of it kind of equivocally as the board of Threshold to some extent, or whatever that is in a DAO context. And they still kind of oversee T-Lab's budget and things like that, and oversight on behalf of token holders. But at the end of the day, they don't have the same operational burden that they once had. And I think, to me, I'm a big believer in DAOs, but I also think that they need to have their specific functions that they're best suited to. And I think governance and being slow is a feature, not a bug of a DAO. And you just need to have them managing the right things that need to be slow and need to have a lot of due diligence, and the security of the protocol being those kind of having those kind of qualities. And then in terms of speed of execution and growth and marketing and vision and product leadership, you need to put that in something that it can move a lot faster.
Okay, yeah, that's a very interesting evolution. Seems like you guys are on the right track there. So let's talk about the future roadmap. What's next for Threshold, and what milestones are you most excited about looking forward next year, 2 years?
Yeah, I think through this process of Threshold Labs coming together, we've really looked at this from a fundamental perspective. And we have this amazing protocol that's been operating for 5 years without issue, and secures 6K in Bitcoin TVL at the moment. And it'd be easy to say, okay, that's great, let's just let people use it. But really, we're seeing the market change a lot. The retail sector kind of falling off in terms of DeFi at the moment, and there's large institutional groundswell happening. So this is really where we're building for at the moment, and building products and building integrations that we can support institutional capital flowing. And they have different requirements. They are not so content using permissionless or decentralized products in their traditional sense. And they need a kind of different security guarantees and trust assumptions in their model. So we're designing products not only where they can deploy, but that they can custody and support the kind of risk requirements of these larger institutions. So I think this is something that we're really excited about, positioning ourselves in this way.
So kind of hand-holding institutions to get them orange-pilled in in the way that makes sense for them.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you handhold retail investors as well? Like if I'm new to crypto and I want to engage in some of these more complex like DeFi activities, like lending and borrowing, and I'm not comfortable and I don't want to lose my crypto, do you guys have entities or that do handholding for retail investors?
We don't have like a service arm per se, which I think would be interesting with the right kind of products. But I think really we want the ecosystem to kind of support that kind of thing.
Right.
Where if somebody wants to build a product on Bitcoin lending and have a retail focus and create an app and go to market with that, we'd be very supportive of that kind of thing and would underpin the infrastructure and make sure it's all secure and automated and all these pieces. But in terms of doing that service arm ourselves, like it's not our core directive as the kind of technological infrastructure provider.
All right. So, Callan, I have to ask, you've got a Bitcoin-focused company. You've been in Bitcoin since 2017. Bitcoin's trading over $100,000. You see a little bit of dip in the last few days. People are talking about the cycle's going to be over in 6 months. Give us your take. What do you think? Does it matter? Is it all noise?
I mean, we're in such uncharted territories. I think a lot could happen. Like, I don't have a very directional take in this one, but how I think about it and how Threshold thinks about it generally, and how I know a lot of Bitcoiners think about it is like multi-cycle, even multi-generational kind of shifts here. And we're quite an established protocol. Like we've been around for 5 years, as I mentioned, live without a security incident. And we're building on a time horizon that is not necessarily so cyclical. So we want to establish the groundwork and the infrastructure so that we can get a baseline Bitcoin economy live in the world, one where you don't have to compromise your trust assumptions and you can still have this permissionless kind of entry and exit to the system. So this cycle, like, I think we probably have some room to grow still. Like, I've never seen a market more bullish on Bitcoin. I don't know how that translates into the rest of crypto per se, but I really do expect there to be a wider adoption of some of these basic principles of the Bitcoin economy. And that's what we're building for and positioning for to enable that at scale.
Okay. And just to wrap things up, what should people do if they want to learn more about Threshold? How do they mint? Where should they go if they want to mint some tBTC?
Yeah, everybody should check out our website. It's threshold.network. We'll have all of the information there, and you can join our community, follow our X at the T Network, and try it out on the app.
Yeah.
I will just preface that there is a new front end and a new website in development. So stay tuned for those announcements because it's going to look amazing and refreshed. So
okay, great. Exciting. So check out the Threshold website. Also, of course, check out the Bitcoin.com wallet because you can learn about Threshold and get paid a little bit in tBTC to learn about what's happening with Threshold, the reward center in the wallet. Very excited about that partnership.
Absolutely.
All right, Callan Sarre, thank you so much for your time.